Hello, my name is Chris Shea. I'm a financial advisor with BPS Financial Services. We're going to talk about in this presentation, wills, trust, powers of attorney. Very important topics that a lot of people are unfamiliar with. So we're going to get into it and hopefully give you a better understanding of it. Going to go through the agenda, ground rules, pretty simple. If you got questions about this afterwards, come back to me. I'm going to introduce myself. So the question really though about this is, what do you know or want to learn about wills, trusts, and the power of attorney? It can be scary because it gets into legalese, but hopefully after the end of this, you'll be better able to manage some of that. We're going to talk about intestacy. What can a will do? Some of the types of wills, healthcare directives, power of attorney. Can go over some frequently asked questions, talk about what a trust can do, some of the types of trusts, and a little bit about funding and how things actually get put into a trust. Again, my name is Chris Shea. I'm a financial planning and implementation partner with my clients, helping them to get what they want out of life with their money and hopefully leave it in the way that they want it left for their heirs, which is a big part of wills, trusts, and powers of attorney. Intestacy. This is when there's no will or trust, it goes to the state. Distributions are based upon a statutory scheme inside of the state. Every state is different. So you're going to want to know what your state's laws are. Bottom line, if you have a will, you don't have to worry about it. The court designated an administrator. Not the person that you might want, but somebody designated by the court. There can be guardianship issues. If you got young children, who did the child go to? Got to make sure it's in who you want. A will help with that. And anyone over 18, they'll get a full distribution of whatever their share is. Even if that's not what you wish, because they might have some issues with drug addiction, or they might have significant others in the midst of a divorce with. Who knows what the circumstances are, but they will get a full share immediately if there's no will or trust. Intestacy is something you want to try and avoid. Get a will. It'll help out in the long run. Probably they can pass without a will or trust. These are things that you don't need the will or trust for. Real estate held in joint, right? If you're married and you both bought the house, it's just going to pass to the other person. Bank accounts. If you've got an account with you, again, and a significant other, they're just going to get it. Accounts with pay on death provisions. Those will happen automatically. Design beneficiaries. Think of all your retirement plans. The beneficiary is just going to go right through and not hit the will or trust. Insurance policy, automobiles, and property that's actually held in trust. If you put a house into a trust, that's going to go there. Okay. What can a will do? Well, it designates who gets your stuff, who gets your car, who gets your boat, who gets your prize pictures, who gets your art collection, who gets your china, who gets your sterling silver, your stuff, who gets it. You can also nominate a guardian for your children. Very important if they're under 18 that you give them a guardian that they want and they don't become wards of the state. And you can also nominate an executor to take care of your final affairs. This is someone that you trust to act in your wishes and make things happen the way you would have wanted them to happen. Types of wills. I'm not going to get into the definition of these. Just know they're out there. There's holographic wills, statutory wills, pour over wills, last will and testament, which we've talked about mostly, and ethical wills. What do you want ethically to happen? Talk to an attorney about all these and the details of them, because there are multiple ways in which you can make your wishes happen through a multitude of wills. What can a trust do? can avoid a lot of probate, gives you more control, helps manage estate taxes for couples. Also deals with incapacity planning, right? As you get older, maybe you become incapacitated, the trust can plan for that, and you can be cared for in the way you want, rather than going to a power of attorney who may not take care of you the way that you want to be taken care of. It's also private. Once it's put in a trust, there's only a very limited number of people that can review it. It's not public knowledge. So if you've got major concerns, put it into a trust. It can be helpful to you. Lots of typing of trusts. There's revocable trust, aka a living trust, irrevocable, an AB trust, special needs trust, ABC trust, power of appointment. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Each one of them accomplishes a different goal. So make sure you talk to an attorney to make sure that you get the type of trust that you want to have given your set of circumstances. How living trusts work when you're alive? Well, they're set up as a legal entity unto themselves. There's a trustee appointed who has control over the trust. They're given a tax ID number, so they're taxed separately. They're funded somehow. Some people put a house in a trust, investment accounts in a trust, cash, and then there's creditors to a trust. So again, if you've got a house that you've put into a trust and there's a mortgage, there's creditors to that. You just can't put a mortgage into a trust with a house and expect not to pay the mortgage. They're still going to ask for that. So there are going to be creditors on that. How does living trust work when I die? Well, it depends upon the trust. It could be a joint trust where there's someone else that's on it. That's great. You're going to be able to write the provisions of the trust. So what you want to have happen is going to happen. If you want, while you're incapacitated, for example, you can put in your provisions there that says this is what happens if A, B, right? You hear a lot of stories about people that fall into comas. What happens? What do the heirs want to do? Well, really, what are the wishes of the person who's in the coma? If there's a trust, those wishes have to be followed. There's going to be an attorney and an accountant that's on there. You get to define the roles of them. There could be another trustee put on there. And if it's not you, who you want to take care of things if something goes awry. You're going to be able to outline the duties and liabilities. There's going to be beneficiary notification, taxes, assets are going to be accumulated, distribution of them, accounting. All of that happens after you pass inside a living trust, and it moves on. It's happened recently with my mother. She passed away and we had a trust set up. Everything got put in the trust and distributed over time. Funding issues. You got to put it in the trust. You've got to write down that's going to go in the trust. There's got to be a schedule. If there's property, the deeds have to go in there. Bank accounts have to go in there. Retirement funds, you can put them in as well. Other assets, cars, boats, whatever you want can go into the trust. Personal property, paintings. All of these things are issues that can come up, and you've got to be able to, again, talk to a lawyer about what's in your best interest to make your wishes happen. We talked a little bit about this before, but there's a healthcare directive as well, where you can have a power of attorney for your healthcare. Part of a living will, you can put in your do not resuscitate instructions and other instructions for care, right? What happens if they're not eating and they need to be put in a feeding tube? You can determine that in advance. All your wishes are out there for you to decide. Terminal illness with cancer, life support. We talked about comas, hydration, nutrition. Does someone go into hospice? Do they have long-term care insurance? Do they donate their organs? All of these wishes are able to be spelled out by you when you create your trust. Take care of yourself. Financial power of attorney, very important. One of the big problems that happens is putting someone in place who might look at it as a license to steal versus the necessity to make sure that wishes happen. Again, if you have a trust, you can outline what happens, and then the power of attorney just has to do what you say, as opposed to hoping they act in what your best interest would be. Who has access to non-trust assets, right? Can be pretty important. Gifts. Who gets gifts? Public benefits. Who gets Social Security? What happens with all that? Is it a durable power of attorney? That means, will it last? Is it going to be short term? All this should have led to a lot of questions that come up. What happens if you change your mind? Well, as long as you're alive and you've got control over the piece of paper and the will and the trust, you can go back and redo it. Redid my mother's will after my husband passed away because he was still in it. He had to come out, change things up. What happens if you die and there's stuff outside the trust? Hopefully you've got a will that covers that. Who gets to see the will and trust? Obviously the attorney that wrote it, the executor, people that are associated with it, all that will come out. Where do you keep your estate planning documents? In a safe place. If you have a financial advisor, they've usually got an online system where you can actually store those documents. They're encrypted. If something happens, the financial advisor will learn about it. They'll be able to pull the documents for you. Update the will or trust when significant things happen. Someone in your will or trust passes. Someone develops, gets married, grandkids, gets divorced, whatever the case may be, whenever there's a significant change, that's when you want to update your trust or will. How expensive is it? It can be very expensive or it can be nominally expensive. But usually the peace of mind that you get and the value from that outweighs the cost. And if you Google DIY trusts and wills, there's a lot of resources out there, but you're getting into legal questions. I always recommend consulting with someone because, again, you're going to have peace of mind knowing that it was done correctly. Hopefully, I've educated you a little bit on wills, trusts, and powers of attorney and spurred a lot of questions. If you got questions that are not specific to a lawyer, you can ask me and I'll be able to hopefully give you some information. But you're going to want to talk to a lawyer eventually to get you the correct answers for your circumstances. And if you've got feedback on the evaluation of this, hopefully you provide it to me. So I'd like to thank you and remind you of what you've learned. Hopefully you've learned what intestacy is and why you want to avoid it through the importance of a will. Some of the uses of trusts, they can be used for a lot of things. Take advantage of them if the circumstances you have require them. Hopefully we've also learned the use and the reason for a healthcare directive to make sure that your needs, wants, and wishes get taken into consideration. And the importance of having current documents. Everything's got to be current. Make sure it's there. Hopefully this has been a really good introduction to wills, trusts, and powers of attorney. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Chris Shea with BPS Financial Services.